The Tyson's Gift podcast was created to promote the normalization of metaphysical and spiritual topics, particularly the reality that we are all each having an earthly experience. Obviously, this will cover a wide berth of topics such as animal communication, mediumship, the paranormal, past life regression, energy healing, you name it. Brandon hopes to entertain his audience with fascinating discussions with experts, as well as everyday folks who have metaphysical experiences and knowledge to share. The intention is to help make esoteric topics fun, relatable, and credible for audiences of all backgrounds. And here is your host of the Tyson's Gift podcast, Brandon Wainwright.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tyson's Gift podcast on WLTK-DB Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Wainwright. And here's my co-host, Pepper Wainwright, who, if you know anything about the book Tyson's Gift, then you know why she is essential to this show. So I'm going to go ahead and let her go now. She's been patient enough to sit for her cameo. Got a great show for you tonight. Awesome guest, somebody I'm very fond of, somebody that I think is an absolute crack up. It's Dave Scott, and he is the creator and host of Canada's Spaced Out Radio, which runs from Monday through Friday nights, and you could find it at spacedoutradio.com. He's also on 8 terrestrial radio stations throughout North America, so United States and Canada. Dave's personal quest into the unknown started in December of 2011. When he had contact from what he calls the angel of death, and we'll be getting into that a little bit later here, that he saw in his mother's eyes, which led to his first channeling experience. After this incident, Dave's personal experiences started becoming more frequent, paranormal experiences. Premonitions started coming true. A Bigfoot sighting with 2 of the creatures within 100 feet of him. UFOs started appearing anytime he wanted, even though Dave had no idea what summoning was. He's had personal sightings of 5 extraterrestrial species, one whom he's nicknamed Carl. And you can join Dave live from 9 p.m. to midnight Pacific time every weeknight at spacedoutradio.com, or if you're lucky enough to live in an area where they broadcast on FM or AM radio, you can get them there too. So with that intro, we will bring Dave on here.
How you doing, my friend?
There he is, Dave Scott, the legend, the master. Dave, he's got this show with all these esoteric topics, but Dave was in radio for many years prior, before he ever started Spaced Out Radio, right, Dave?
Yeah, I spent 10 years as a journalist. I went to college for broadcast journalism, and it came to a point in 2007 where I wanted to know what it was like to have food on my table and gas in my tank at the same time. Anybody who knows real radio knows it doesn't pay well for as much as it is an addicting career. But you know what? I don't regret my time in terrestrial radio. I loved every minute of it. Well, almost every minute of it. And, it kind of led me down a path. When I stepped away from radio in 2007, I dropped it all. I had such a bad taste in my mouth from some of the people that I worked with at the radio station where I was, that I just fell out of love with the topic. And then when my own experiences started in 2011, it took me a couple of years, and I didn't even know what a podcast was. I didn't know what it was like to download anything. I'd never done it before. And I had, when I say I stepped away clean. And then in 2014, I had a friend of mine who said, well, let's get you back on the radio talking about this stuff. And I'm like, nah, you just can't walk into a radio station and say, hey, I want the nighttime slot. Yeah. It's not how it works. And he goes, no, there's this online stuff, man. You do it online. And I checked it out. I'm like, yeah, this might be fun. And almost 8.5 years later, we're still around.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic show. I gotta go off a little bit about my own personal experiences with this show. So When I first released Tyson's Gift, a mutual friend of ours, Melinda Leslie, suggested that I call Dave to go on the show to promote the book and talk about the book. And I was so nervous. I remember I called Dave on the phone. I was so nervous, like I could hardly even talk to him on the phone because I hadn't done any of this stuff, and it was intimidating. But so he reaches. I'm not going to go brag about this on the show, but he reaches an average of 177,000 people per evening on his show. So, I mean, it's got quite a wide reach. So the idea of getting to go on a show like that to me sounded like crazy, ambitious. But he was more than it. Just very gracious, took me right in, was humble, made me feel comfortable. Didn't going on the show was a blast. His shows are 3 hours long, as we were saying, 9 to midnight. So it was fantastic. But after that, I still continued to listen to him. And I'm not going to lie and say I listen to him every day now. I'm especially being on the East Coast, it makes it kind of hard. But what I would do a lot when I was working still as a police officer, and I was a motor officer for the last 5 years of my career, and especially the last year I was there, I had Bluetooth in my helmet, and so I would tune into Dave's show from the night before, and I'd put it into my helmet, and I'd listen to Spaced Out Radio while I was patrolling.
Awesome.
So it was good. It was I mean, granted, I was kind of in these low impact areas where I didn't have to be too crazy on the ball all the time, but still, I got to multitask, and Dave made my day at work a little bit better.
Thanks.
And so pretty awesome. But that just goes to show you, it's an entertaining show. It really is. I didn't just go on there and be a guest and then that was the end of it. The show's good enough to where I wanted to listen each night. It gets into awesome. You can compare your show probably to Coast to Coast, right? I mean, that's kind of
I think it's fair, but I think we're a little bit more spookier.
Yeah.
Than Coast to Coast. Coast to Coast does a lot on health and nutrition and politics and everything that is kind of not Coast to Coast.
Yeah. I mean,
so we've kind of brought that spookiness back.
Yeah.
So I want to apologize to you right off the bat here, because I had my first migraine in 5 years last night, and it hit me overnight. And for anybody who's had migraines before, you get the migraine hangover after the pain goes away. And so I'm kind of in that daze right now. So if I'm speaking a little slower, that's probably the reason why.
Yeah, I can't tell. I can't tell at all. You seem perfectly good to me. I want to give a shout out to Primrose, who says I'm here, and Keith Fletcher, who says hello everyone. So just to give you guys a shout out. All right. Anyway, no, you don't sound like your days at all. By the way, the healing in the future, if you get one of those, and I'm serious about this, reach out to me.
I will.
Because the healing, at least I don't know if it's the energy that I'm sending or if it's just whatever, but very, very, very effective with headaches and migraines in particular.
Right.
And just be aware. You can always reach out to me. I don't want, if you're in that kind of pain, I would be happy to stop what I'm doing and help you out. Stephanie Congiano says, good evening. Good evening, Stephanie. Thank you for being here.
I haven't had a migraine in like 5 years. I forgot what the pain was like. It was like, wow. Like, I have the softest pillows in the world, and they felt like concrete.
Yeah, that sounds brutal. Well, just know, honestly, that
I will.
Just give me a shout out. I'll be happy to help you. So, being that Dave, he hits on everything from the paranormal to the spiritual to UFOs to Bigfoot, which those are ETs too, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants a little bit of aliens,
Yeah.
Gotta have a little bit of aliens.
Well, right, but they are a species that a lot of people believe that they are actually from another planet. Yeah. But anyway, Dave, he has so many different topics that he goes into. But the thing is, I need to point out that he always does it. His show goes on in the evening, and before he goes on his show, he always has breakfast for dinner. His
Oh,
his
yeah.
favorite his favorite meal is eggs, bacon, and pancakes. Just
I I am about to insult you with major, major soccer reflections and hit my ejection seat. Oh, I cannot stand breakfast for dinner.
yeah.
Cannot stand it. It
Dave, that's Dave's big thing. He asks all of his guests about breakfast for dinner. Excuse me, you have to forgive me. I'm actually just getting over a cold, so my voice is a little off. A little sniffly still. So, I guess Dave and I talked earlier today about what particular subjects we were going to get into, and it's not a 3 hour show, so we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. My intention is to have Dave back again if he's willing to come. But tonight, I think we kind of decided we would hit on his angel of death experience, at least to start off with. So, angel of death, that's something that everybody's familiar with, but of course, most people think of the Grim Reaper or something legendary when you're talking about such subject matter. So, can you tell me about that experience?
Yeah, it was December 13th, 2011 at 7:45 p.m. And I remember that date very clearly because I had a house full of family who was over. And the reason why my family was over, we had about 20 people in the house. And my daughter was going with my ex-wife's parents to on a Caribbean cruise over Christmas and New Year's. So we weren't going to see her. And she's like, well, Dad, we can do gifts and family when I get back. I said, no, why don't we do it beforehand? So we decided to do a big Christmas, early Christmas for her with the turkey dinner, and the tree was up, and everybody brought their presents. And I had my sisters there, my nieces and nephews were there, my grandmother and my uncles and a couple of friends. Like I said, about 20 people over. And I had this house where the kitchen kind of tied into my television room, and then you had to go through a doorway from the kitchen to go into my dining room and living room area. And about 7:45, the reason why that is significant, because I got really pissed off at my parents because they were leaving. And
Kind of
here I
early.
was full of people, and my parents were leaving because, well, my parents are we're not a close family, okay? We're a very individualized family, and my parents had to get home for Dancing with the Stars because everybody knows Dancing with the Stars is more important than time with your family and your granddaughter,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah.
frustrating.
So, but they're stubborn that way. And my mother is a two-time cancer survivor. And she's gone through a lot of chemo and radiation over the years, and she's not a healthy woman. And my mother was at that time really frustrating us as a family because she had an addiction. I shouldn't say that. To me, it seemed like she had an addiction to sympathy.
Mm.
So when you would call her up, she'd answer the phone all, hello. And you'd be like, "Hey, mom, it's me." And she'd be like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, the pain, the pain." Everything was about pain. She was never asking about how your day went or my day went or anything. It was always about her pain. And it got to the point where my sisters and I and other people in the family literally stopped calling my mom because we were tired of it,
Yeah.
right?
And then what you said about it being an addiction, I mean that, it sounds like, it's not uncommon for people to start to define themselves by an ailment that they have.
Absolutely.
They don't they actually their comfort zone is being in that pain, and not just physically, but what they get from other people. That's when it comes to healing. That is something that can trip people up because they're so attached to that being in that state where they're a victim, or they want people's sympathy, or it's the definition of who they've become, that they don't want to let that go. And when they don't want to let it go, the healing can't occur. So
No, and you're absolutely right. So My mother, I was pretty mad that my parents announced that they were leaving.
Yeah.
So I kind of stormed off into my dining room and my living room, and I started cleaning up all the dishes and glasses that were there. And my mom wandered into the kitchen, and my partner says, "Hey, come give your mom a hug." Okay, fine, because she knew I was mad. And so I put the glasses down on the and the dishes down on the table, and I walked through the doorway between my dining room and my kitchen, and everything went silent. My mom was right there, like I'm looking at you, and everything went silent. There was no hockey game on the TV or no volume on the hockey game, and it seemed like everybody was standing still. And I looked into my mother's beautiful blue eyes, and they were jet black, with her pupils being very bright white light. And I kind of took a step back because I immediately knew in my gut that I wanted to cry and that I wanted to scream, because I knew what I was looking into, and that was the eyes of the angel of death. Don't ask me how. I don't know how I knew. I just knew. It was a spiritual movement. And my mother kind of all of a sudden went like in shock, like, "Oh, you see me." And then she shook her head. Her eyes went blue again, came in, gave me a hug like nothing happened. And in that split moment, everybody started talking. There was volume on the hockey game. And I was like, what the hell just happened? I stormed off to my room. My partner followed me. She says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I just saw the angel of death in my mother's eyes." She went, "Oh my God." And I said,
Yeah.
"I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry." And she goes, "Well, tighten it up. Your parents are at the front door. They're leaving. Go give your mother a hug and kiss. Go give your dad a hug and see them on their way." So I did that. And I was just out of tune the rest of the night. A couple hours later, when everybody had left the house and our daughters were down in their bedrooms, um, my partner suggested that we go into our living room, and she moved the couches around where I was sitting on the love seat, she was sitting on the couch, and the table in front of us had some white candles on it. And she was into all this woo stuff. I wasn't. And um, she goes, "I want you to relax, and I want
Can,
you to
can I
just."
can I stop you for a sec, Dave? So when you say you weren't into the woo, but prior to this experience in your previous life, were you? Had you
I
had it?
mean, I had worked in a haunted building. I had lived in a haunted house. I believed it. I'd seen one, maybe two UFOs at the time. One I'm still not sure of. I'd never seen Sasquatch. I believed in it because it just seemed so real with all the stories in British Columbia. But I mean, like everybody else, I watched the shows. I watched Ghost Adventures. I watched Ghost Hunters. I watched Paranormal State. I watched UFO Hunters on TV. Watched it all, because I found it entertaining, you
Yeah,
know?
it sounds
And
it sounds a lot like with like my experiences. I had similar things. Lived in haunted houses. Had experiences with actually seeing ghosts and all, the whole thing, and it still didn't register. Like it was still something that was outside of my wheelhouse until a certain experience happened that sometimes it I was just curious if it was completely foreign to you or if it was something that you
no,
were.
it's this part I was very foreign to. I mean, I grew up. I'm not agnostic or atheist. I grew up with a strong belief in God and Jesus, and if you're good, you go up. If you're bad, you go down to hell. Right?
Yeah,
I never went to church though, but because our church growing up was either the baseball diamond in summer or the hockey arena in the winter.
yeah,
And my dad is more of a real five senses type of guy. And so that's where we spent our weekends. But um, I still had that strong belief that there was something else out there. And I mean, I had an amazing experience when I was 25 that still to this day it hits me pretty hard. Um, I
Yeah.
was was coaching hockey on Vancouver Island, and I had to drive the hour and a half or whatever it was home. And on Vancouver Island, it's not very populated, so I get on the highway, and uh, I'll, I suffer from depression and anxiety, which I'm very open about. Because I promote that because I don't think a lot of men, especially out there, think it's cool or tough to
Yeah.
talk about depression and anxiety. We put the weight of the world on our shoulders and we do nothing about it. And
Mhm.
then many end up doing something stupid. I wear that, man. I wear that patch,
Yeah.
for me, my audience, okay, men who might be in my, or women, or whatever you may be. That way they know that they have an ally with them
It
in
takes
my
a lot of courage.
and
It-
and so I was driving down the highway. There's nobody behind me in my two lanes heading south. There's nobody coming north. It's about 12:30 at night, and all of a sudden I just start thinking, and my brain goes into overload, and I start thinking about death. I had become a father uh, that year, and for the first time. And I remember I'd made my daughter a promise that I would be with her forever. And that's the line that hit me. I said, I would be with you forever. And I just started freaking out all the time. I would have these major anxiety attacks over death. And so one night I'm driving down the highway and it's 12:30 at night. And I just finished coaching hockey where my team won 5-2, and I get hit with this anxiety attack and I start screaming bloody murder at God.
Wow.
And
So it was visceral for you.
it was how dare you? You make no sense. Why and I was using expletives too. Why would you put us on this planet just to die? That doesn't make sense. If we're supposed to believe in you and live for eternity, why would you give us a trial run to hurt us?
Mm.
I went through it all. And I remember coming way in the distance, I saw this overpass and the lights on the overpass because the highway is quite dark. And at this point, I'm doing about 85, 90 miles an hour in my car. In kilometers, it's about 140, 150. And I'm going faster and faster. And I'm screaming at God. I can barely see. Tears are running down my eyes. And all of a sudden I hear this song in my head, and I don't know what the song is called. And somewhere in my house, I have a DVD of it because when my grandfather used to visit me, I'd hear him in this song. It's very angelic and spiritual. And all of a sudden, I felt the hand of God on my shoulder, like a big, giant hand, like 15, 20 times the size of my hand.
Mm.
And it went from like my neck all the way down. My shoulder was covering my back, and the fingers were covering over my shoulder, and it just relaxed me.
Uh,
And this voice said to me, "Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." And as I'm still driving, I'm getting closer to this overpass. And at that time, one of the biggest deer I've ever seen is standing right in the middle of the highway underneath the lights. And I'm looking at this deer, and this deer is looking at me. And I slowed my car right down to zero. I got maybe 100 feet from that deer, put my car in neutral because I drove a standard, put my car in neutral, had my foot on the brake. There's nobody behind me, nobody in front of me, nobody going in the other lanes. And I just stood there catching my breath saying, "Thank you, God." And the deer was still staring at me. And then once I'd kind of calmed down and caught my breath, the deer turned its head forward instead of looking at me, turned its head forward, and then slowly walked across the highway and then up the hill. And I just sat there like, you got to be kidding me. This just happened. It's a very religious moment for me. Very religious moment. So getting back to the original story.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. Getting back to the original story of the angel of death, and the woo part, I don't remember the next 38 minutes with my partner. And I do recall channeling, and I heard the angel of death's voice in my head, and I was channeling him. Now, my idea of channeling right before this, man, was taking a remote control and flipping the channels as fast as I could, because there's nothing on Sunday night at 11 o'clock. And I'm like, but he came through me and he said, Dave, your mother is sick. Your mother is not very well. And if you as a family don't start to treat your mother with more respect, I'm going to take her home. He didn't say heaven. He didn't say hell. He said, take her home. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? How do I keep my mother alive? And he goes, simple. Talk to your family. Tell them what we talked about. So I did. And the only person I couldn't talk to was my dad. And it took me about a year.
Is that because he didn't want to hear it, or because you were afraid to talk to him?
He's a five senses, bah. Like that's famous, bah. Right? And every time I do that, my sisters laugh. It's an inside joke now. But I told everybody what had happened. And my mother, God bless her, she's in a home now, but 12 years later, she's still alive. Right? She would have never held my son. You know, she would have never done a lot of things.
Do you feel like she has grown from it and gained from it?
She didn't know.
But did you tell her, or did you only talk?
About 9-10 months later, I told her.
It did, obviously the angel of death had intentions there. He wanted, maybe it could have been more about the lessons that you were learning than it was about what your mom was learning. But did your mom, did she seem to like, did it shift at all, or did she continue with that same pattern of needing the sympathy and everything?
My mother could barely pick up a fork to feed herself. That's how weak she was. And the minute she found out my partner and I were pregnant with our son, she started gaining her strength back. Like she had a new will to live. And the minute my son was born, there she was, just carrying my son around. Like, this is a lady who could barely walk, who could barely hold on to anything. Okay. And there she was, just a pillar of strength when she held my son for the first time. And when she, all of a sudden, prior to him being born, she had to all of a sudden drive herself to Walmart or to one of the stores to go buy some baby clothes or go buy, and we're like, Mom, we don't need it. And no, that's my job. That was her job.
Devotion.
Right? That devotion to the family. And it gave her perspective. It gave her a new reason to go. And the funny part about that was back in October, my mom wasn't doing too well. And my dad called us all in because we were told that probably the next 24 to 48 hours that we would maybe be losing her. And
this is just a few months ago.
Yeah. And so we're all there. We drive down, and it was one of those calls where you got to go, and that's a 5 hour, 4.5 hour drive for me, but you got to go. And it was amazing because here she was, no smiling, barely opening her eyes, troubles breathing. And my son, who's now 9, goes running into the room. Hi, Grandma, I'm here. And climbs up onto the bed and lays down with her. And she puts her arm around him. Well, God damn, now she's not out of the woods yet, but she turned around again. Like, and I laugh with my sisters and my dad that my mother has 9 lives. She's like a cat. This is like about the 7th or 8th time that she's been on death's doorstep.
Yeah.
Given death the middle finger, right? Like, what are you doing here, Phil?
What occurred to me as you're telling this is just a thought. How we have soul contracts.
Yeah.
What, could it be that your mom, that you and your siblings and your dad and your son now, everybody had soul contracts with your mom, and those soul contracts weren't being fulfilled for for different reasons. And the angel of death was like, well, I'm not going to waste her time here. And, and it sounds like your son is a big part of that. I mean, the way he's able to invigorate her the way he did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Do
you want to take a quick break?
No, we can keep going.
Okay.
Unless you want to take a break, we can take a break.
No, I'm good. Unless we're, I think we're okay. So I never know. Like they have these station breaks that we take here and there, but I was never told I needed to or not needed to. So it's not like with the terrestrial where you're on a schedule. Oh, Caden Mask says, Davey. is that one of your loyal listeners?
Caden, they'll listen. Great people. Great
people. Mike says it's up to us if we want one. So just let me know if you need a break. Good conversation. Yeah, when you're going 3 hours every night, you don't really need a break after a half hour, huh?
Yeah. How long's a break?
A minute and a half.
Let's skip it. I can't do anything in a minute and a half. Screw it.
Well,
let's go.
If you need to take a tinkle break?
No, I'm good.
You sure? I can hold the air.
I'm positive. Positive. I can last. But getting back to the angel of death, about 6 months later, my partner's grandmother, we got the call for partner's grandmother that she was on her final stages and to hurry and get out of town and get to her hospice room. And so we get there, walk in, and everything, as you know, Brandon, has energy.
Oh, yes.
Everything has an energy signature. And the minute I walked into her room, I knew the angel of death was in there because I recognized the energy.
Yeah.
And the energy was bouncing all over. Sometimes it would be behind me or up in a corner or beside the bed or over by the bathroom or by the door. It was bouncing all over the place. And, I'm now 6 months into this and, and I've been practicing my channeling and I've been practicing my communication with the other side. And I'm getting cocky because I know what's going on. Oh yeah. I'm a big part of the game. I know everything. Right? Please note the sarcasm, audience. And I start challenging him. Come on, show me where you are. I know you're here. I can feel you. You're up in the corner. Now you're over there. Now you're here. Come on, what are you afraid to show me? Afraid of? You're the angel of death. I'm human. What are you afraid of? Just show me. Tell me what it's all about. Show me yourself. What, are you too good for that? And just egging him on. About 2 hours later, and about 9 minutes before Grandma breathed her final breath. I'm standing at the foot of the bed. Grandma's feet are 6 inches away from me. That's how close I am. I've got my arm around my partner, who's bawling her eyes out. Okay, because she's watching her grandmother die. It's a sad thing. I don't know the lady from anything, so it's not really affecting me too much. I'm just there to play the role of the supportive partner.
Sure.
I mean, I think at that point, I had only met the lady 3 times, so not enough to forge a relationship.
Yeah.
And as I'm standing there looking at her, all of a sudden I feel the angel of death right beside her. And I watch her spirit come out of her body.
Uh-huh.
And her spirit came right out of her body. It was about 10 inches, a foot long. And it was shaped like a football of like this swirling cloud. And all of a sudden I hear in my head, is this it? Is this what you want to see? Is this what it's all about? And then poof, spirit shoots through the ceiling, just like a gunshot, just boom, gone. And I watch it just go, whoop, just like that. Angel of Death's energy is gone. Room is cleared. And I do what any man would do. Holy shit. Right? Pardon my language.
Oh, it's okay. We're not on terrestrial. It's okay.
And I start laughing. There's 15 people in the room. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like I start laughing out of nervous joy. And I pull on my partner. Come on. I got to talk to you outside. And she's like, what's the matter? I said, your grandma's gone. She's like, no, she's still breathing. There's a chance. I said, no, honey. I just saw her spirit leave her effing body. And it's one of the most incredible things I just have ever seen. I can't believe it. Like I was jumping up and down for joy because remember, I'm the guy who has anxiety attacks about death.
Yeah.
And now I have seen one of the most godly things ever right in front of me.
But the way you worded it with the angel of death saying that, is this what it's all about? It sounds like he was or he or she or they were admonishing you. It almost sounds like
absolutely he was, because I was taunting him for 2 hours. I was taunting him. Show me where you are. What are you, a jerk? You're too good for me. I was taunting him. Right? And then he showed me the ultimate. Spirit leaving the body.
But the thing is, you received a very healing experience there. So it was, I mean, on the one hand, it sounds like he was like irritated with you for for challenging him or whatever. But at the same time,
well, I could tell you this. I'd never ever in my life seen a person die. That's still the first person I've seen die. And I don't want to see it happen again. Okay. Sure. But, because I'm not good with death. But I can tell you this. It was really cool putting the whole experience together from 9 minutes before to watching her spirit leave her body, shoot through the ceiling, and then watching her 9 minutes later breathe her final breath. And then the really cool part about that was right as soon as she, like within 10, 15, maybe a minute, we always try to exaggerate on the time, but it was maybe a minute after she breathed her final breath, her favorite song on the stereo came on, which was Flight of the Valkyrie. Very
cool. That was her. That was her saying, hey, I'm okay.
Yeah, totally. And so it honestly, it was a great moment of my life in experiencing that. So
Yeah, that's it.
that's
And I'm sure, like all of us, you go through periods, even when you've experienced all these wild things, because we live in a 5D world, or a 3D world rather, five senses world. It, it, it sometimes you question, even though you've had a plethora of experiences, you still question when it's at certain times. So I'm sure for you, when you reflect back on that particular experience,
oh
that's
yeah,
one of those ones that grounds you out, I would
absolutely.
think.
Absolutely. And, this is where, a lot of my argument comes from, especially the UFO community and the Bigfoot community. They're so sick and tired of anecdotal stories, which is 99% of our field. And they're always asking, what's proof? What is proof? I don't know what proof is. Because, Brandon, if I show you a video, let's say I take a video of a ghost walking through my yard.
Yeah,
You have so many outs to
sure.
disprove that
Yeah,
there's no point. Or if I take a photograph of it with my phone, okay, or an old school camera with actual film in it, well, you can debunk that too, right?
yeah,
And so I don't know what proof is anymore outside of people's events that have happened to them. I don't like calling them stories, even though I do, but they're events
yeah.
that happened to that person. Why?
I want to share something real quick, if you don't mind. I was debating whether I should talk about this. Something that happened to me yesterday, like on Wednesday. um, or no, I'm sorry, it was Tuesday. I had I had a session with one of my a spiritual teacher that I work with quite a bit, and it was over Zoom. And she's, so I'm looking at her. She's in front of her computer or whatever, and on the right side of, like, over her right shoulder, on the wall behind her, from the time that the session starts, I can see this light, and the light, it's alive, and it appears to, like, it's coming in from the window, of the room that she's in or whatever. And I mean, it looks like it's light, like there's something in there, but I'm my skeptical mind, as I'm trying to focus on the healing that I'm getting, and what I'm trying to learn from this session. I'm disregarding it. And after about a half hour, 45 minutes of it, it's still there. And I take, so it's like, shit, this thing is not going away. So I look at it, and and I kid you not, there's a face. It's a clear face, and it's changing. It's like watching, and it's well, I believe it was Christ. That's
That would be awesome.
that's what Amara told me it was, and that was the first image I saw when I looked in. That was what I saw, and then it kind of transitioned into this beautiful feminine face, and that's where it pretty much stayed for me anyway, because she kept seeing Christ. I saw this beautiful woman, and then another being standing next to it. And the thing was, the session ended up going for 2 hours, and it never changed. I mean, it changed as far as it seemed to move, like to be alive, but that they, how, I mean, I think actually a word for it, where your brain's programmed to see faces, like when you look in the clouds, or you look at the
Yeah.
ceiling specks or whatever. But the thing about this was, where she was at, it was sunlight coming in, but it was cloudy. But over a 2 hour period in the afternoon, that light is going to shift enough to where that face is going to disappear, or it's going to morph into something completely different over 2 hours. And it didn't. it stayed exact. I mean, it was the same. I mean, it was wild. And so the reason I'm saying is because, you could easily say, argue with that and say, well, it was a distortion on your screen. It was whatever. But how can it go that long? And when I pointed it out to her, right away, she's like, oh yeah. Like she knew it was there too. So pretty wild. I just thought I'd share that because it was.
Oh, I think that's awesome.
I've talked about it on the air a little bit. I'm going through. I'll just be straight about it. I'm going through the dark night of the soul right now. I'm going through one of the top 3 difficult events of my lifetime, and so to have that show up in the midst of that session was it was very affirming. I want to give a quick shout out to some people. Barbara Rosefield says hello. I say hello back. Stanley Robluski, fan of the show and Facebook friend, says proof is reproducibility of data captured at different times. It is one of the tenets of the scientific method. This is, and the thing about these different things that we have is a lot of times that's not possible because it's a one-time thing that you see, and so you got to take it on faith. You have to trust your gut. You have to trust your intuition. And it's, I guess maybe he's referring to that tendency to see faces, pareidolia. Pareidolia. Yeah. Kara Mickelvar. I guess that's
McIver.
McIver. Oh, that's an I. It's my bad. Sorry, Kara. She says, hi, Dave Scott. And Stan also says, leave the visions behind and continue your spiritual journey. Well, that's true. I mean, you don't want to be focused on these visions, but to know that there's that you've got God's got your back, Spirit's got your back. That's a comforting thing. And so I'm going to take that and run with it personally.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you, man.
So now that you've got the you've had this experience with the angel of death, you're clearly opening up, and so you're channeling that. Actually, it sounds like it opened you.
It did. What really opened me was I started working with I call him my guru, a gentleman named Pascal, who really opened me up to everything. And I remember when I first got to know Pascal, we went for a drive that night. It was like 11 o'clock, almost 11:30 at night. And he's like, come on, let's go for a drive. I'm like, well, I got to work in the morning. He's like, so what? You can sleep. Let's go for a ride. So, okay. And so I went for a ride. And the first question he asked me was, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And Pascal is a giant of a man. He's about 6'3" and about 320 pounds. And when he, a lot of people would say, well, what's with this guy? He looks a little odd. And then you shake his hand and it's all business. All business. So I made the mistake of saying, let's go all the way. And that's when I really knew that the phenomena owns everything. And it doesn't parse out paranormal or near-death experiences or aliens or Bigfoot or gnomes or consciousness. It is all one. And I started realizing that very heavily about 5 years ago. 5 years ago is when I started paying attention to it.
To the oneness.
The oneness of everything.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why we're not solving anything is because we're looking at things too individualistically. And I think that's put there on purpose. The roadblocks are on purpose. Because everybody's individual journey, I believe, is different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like for example, like you've blown wide open. Now you're able to sense where the energy is and all this. Well, my opening up, I'm opening, but it's at a completely different rate, different things that I'm able to key in on. But when I was looking at that face and that energy, it was like a gift. It was like, I'm revealing myself to you. I'm allowing myself to be seen by you, and where normally I wouldn't be able to. But it was like it just went on and on and on. It was effortless, totally effortless. And I'm one that's tried to put effort into my development to some extent. I mean, I've got natural gifts, and then there's other things where I see other people trying, or that have these gifts, and so I try to tap in and see if I can do it too. But none of it has come unless Spirit wanted it to, unless I was meant to learn it. It's like, and then like that, what happened with the face, that was not me. That was it allowing me to see it.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I tell you what, that is one lesson for those of you that are listening. A lot of you probably know this very well, but I'll share it anyway. As you go through your spiritual journey and you're trying to tap into your intuitive senses, accept what you're given. As hard as that can be sometimes when you're not given what you want or what you think you want or what you think you need, accept it and just do it with the highest intent, and things will open as they should. That's my advice of the day. So, Stanley says, awareness. I'm loving awareness. Ramdas. That's the quote. What a wonderful experience talking about you, and everything is a lesson. Grandmaster UV says, "Hey, Dave."
That's the Gong Show. The Gong Show, we call them.
Okay. That this hour is going by in a hurry. Before we close off, I want to, and you need to get off the air pretty much at the top of the hour, right? That's what you were saying. Okay.
I got to go to my my appointment that I
have. No, I know. The Grandmaster says, I'm glad I searched UFO for live streams, found you. Yeah, so he's
Gong Show.
I'm thankful that you did too, because Dave is awesome. I'm going to go into my favorite segment here, and so I'm giving the audience fair warning. We're going to start the potty humor of the week, Brando's potty humor of the week, and I used to do it at the top of the show, and I got feedback that it was turning people off. So I'm doing it at the end of the show now. So if you're not into it, you can tune out. We're about to do some toilet humor here, because I want to keep it light, because even people like me that are just normal toilet humor loving people can be woo. And so can Dave. And so tonight, I mean, look at him. Look at this man. Look at that beard. Look at that backdrop. This is a man with a good sense of humor and plenty of toilet humor stories to back it up. So tonight, I'm going to let him do the talking. And with that, let's start our segment.
Sometimes it's soft, sometimes it's runny, sometimes it stinks, but it's always funny. It's Brando's potty humor of the week.
What do you think? You like that intro? All right. So, Dave, you told me you've got a couple good potty humor stories. So I'm going to save the ones that I had in mind for next week, and I'm going to let Dave take it away because I know it's going to be good.
All right. Well, it goes back to my radio days where I'm reading the sports scores on the air, and it comes down to the baseball ones, and I know I'm running out of time. And when you start panicking on time in radio, you start fumbling your words. So everybody knows the baseball team, the Chicago White Sox.
Yes.
Yeah. So here I am in the middle of the daytime drive, and I go to tell the baseball score between Chicago and whoever they're playing. So instead of calling them the Chicago White Sox, I call them the Chicago Whitecocks on the air. That was embarrassing. Very unprofessional. I'll give you another sports one. This one put me in an awkward moment, a weird moment. When I was covering the Vancouver Canucks, it was trade deadline day of 2006. And the Canucks had this player named Steve McCarthy, who I knew. Very little used defenseman.
You knew him personally?
Yeah. And after the trade deadline happened, about 8-10 minutes came down that he had been traded to Atlanta. So I call him up and I'm like, hey, dude, what's going on? He goes, nothing, man. You woke me from a nap. I'm like, have you heard the news? He goes, what news? I'm like, dude, you don't know? He goes, no, what, Dave? So, dude, you've been traded. Oh, fuck. To who? Atlanta. For what? Future considerations. Oh, man, my wife just moved all my stuff here from Chicago 2 weeks ago. She's not going to be happy with me. He goes, I got to call you later. So telling a professional athlete that they've been traded, that was kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Right? Now, show-wise, awkwardness. It was for my 45th birthday. I opened up my Facebook Messenger because, I get a few hundred people a year wishing me a happy birthday, which is really cool. And I try and say that. So I open up this private message from this lady who is about, I'm going to say late 60s, early 70s. And she's not the smallest lady in the world, okay?
Okay.
And I open up my Facebook Messenger. She goes, happy birthday. I hope these will do for you. And she's got her picture of a video of her going like this, naked. And I was like, what do I do with this? Oh, my goodness. What do I do with that? So there's 3 of them for you.
Excellent. Those were good. I appreciate you being a good sport. Good sport. Kara says, that's a great beard.
I grew it myself, Kara McIver. I grew it myself. Now, Kara lives in the flatlands of Saskatchewan, which means if she waves, all of us in North America should be able to see her.
All right. Well, hey, we're just about out of time, so I'm going to get you out of here right on time, which is good. Usually I have difficulty doing that. So I want to thank you so much for coming on here and being a good sport. Dave, Dave is like I was saying, for those of you that joined us kind of late, he's a kind of a big deal. He won't tell you that, but he's got a huge following, 177,000 people per night, his podcast, 8 terrestrial stations. And yet he still finds time for a little lowly guy like me to come on the air. So I appreciate it. And by the way, I have been on his show twice. Blast. I've had so much fun on his show. So invite me back. I want to come back. Anytime you want me on, I am there. And I will be in touch with you to have you come on again to talk about, some of the other esoteric subject matter that you know so much about. Because we can certainly occupy a lot more time. And I think, I don't know, hopefully the audience had as much fun tonight as I did, And Stanley says, have a wonderful evening. Great show. I'll have to check Dave out. Bonsoir, he says. So yeah, so Spaced Out Radio, again, spacedoutradio.com is Dave's site. If you want to check out my offerings, of course, TysonsGift.com is my book. TysonsGiftHealing.com is my healing site, and it's got all my offerings there. I am as much of a character and as much as I am a connoisseur of toilet humor, I am also a good healer. So check me out. Thanks, Dave. I hope your appointment goes well, and I look forward to our next chat.
Take care, buddy.
Okay, you too. Take care, everybody.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.